God of War Ragnarok has managed to dethrone all of the other games in my top 3 and managed to gradually climb its way to the #1 spot, becoming my top game of the year, my game of the year, purely and solely. And that was something that I thought was going to be a very hard thing to do, even for God of War Ragnarok before its launch. I thought it was going to be very hard for it to dethrone the other games that were in my top 3, just because those 3 games personally were just so great. But God of War Ragnarok has delivered, and it is an absolute masterpiece. This is going to be my spoiler-free review. Obviously, I'm going to put some kind of, general gameplay in the background as we go through this. So there's, I guess, very minor stuff in that kind of sense. So keep that in mind. I'm going to try to, keep things as vague as possible. But if you're really trying to go into this completely blind, then obviously, don't watch any spoilers until you beat the game. But I'm not going to be giving away any massive plot points. I'm going to be doing the very best of my ability to just give you guys kind of the basics, the fundamentals, as much as I need to give you, and nothing beyond that. Now, what I will say is, just before we kind of get into the nitty gritty of everything, is let me explain first what my top 3 games were previously, right? So Elden Ring, I was never a big Souls fan, but I love that game. That was my game of the year when I played through that game. Then Xenoblade Chronicles 3 came out, played that over on my Nintendo channel. And that kind of, took over Elden Ring for me, because that game was a masterpiece in and of itself. And then I played A Plague Tale Requiem recently, and you may have seen it on the channel. And the game literally made me cry like a big baby at the end of it. So I'm like, there's no way anything's gonna beat that. So my top 3 was those 3. As I was progressing through God of War Ragnarok, excuse me. As I was progressing through the game, it slowly started to climb up. It knocked Elden Ring out of the 3rd place spot, and then Ragnarok took over that. And then eventually, it swapped places with Xenoblade Chronicles 3 in 2nd place, and brought Xenoblade Chronicles 3 down to 3rd place for me. And then it was kind of neck and neck with A Plague Tale Requiem. But as I progressed further and further into the game, it definitely overtook A Plague Tale Requiem as well. And it took that #1 spot for me. It just shattered every expectation that I had. They took everything that we loved about God of War back, what was it, 2018 was it, I believe it was? God of War 4, I guess, or God of War PS4, whatever they're calling it. And they took everything you loved about that game and made it so much better, like so much better. They vastly and greatly improved on everything. Like, if that game was a 10 out of 10 for you, I don't even know what this game would be. I mean, you can't really score higher than a 10 out of 10. I guess you can go and say it's an 11 out of 10, I guess. But I mean, dude, honestly, it's just insane. So, all that to say, let's go bit by bit. First of all, let's go with the audio and the music and things like that. I'm a huge audiophile. I love music. The soundtrack is phenomenal. I just love it. It really captivates, or captures rather, the vibe and just the essence of what they're trying to kind of make you feel throughout the game, right? And I think that's great composing always. I love the score. It has, especially the main theme, has a very sort of, it feels very has like a mythological vibe to it. And it feels very, I don't know how to really explain it in detail, but it's beautiful. It's a beautiful score. When it needs to be more intense and more in your face, it is, in kind of heat of things. And sometimes there's kind of more subtle music that just really sets the mood, sets the vibe. Again, very well done on that side of things. Now, in terms of the artwork and the environments and the kind of, all the areas you're going to explore, the various different realms, each one is beautiful. They all have their own kind of, vibe, their own kind of environment, and they're very well done. Again, to the artists that were involved with this game, they have done a phenomenal job. It is so freaking gorgeous to look at. And I was playing it in performance mode. I started in quality mode, which is about like 30 FPS, but it puts, the nicest graphics possible. But even in performance mode, you're getting a buttery smooth 60 FPS, which is really nice, by the way. And the graphics are dumbed down a little bit, but it's still a stunning piece of visual to look at, right? And then beyond that, there is a high frame rate target mode as well, which can push up to 120. Which is pretty cool as well if you want to go with that high. But obviously I was fine with the performance mode, 60 FPS, but like I said, buttery smooth. I didn't have any performance issues. I had no bugs throughout the game. I didn't have any weird kind of glitches or anything like that. Well, there was one part where there was like it was like a rope or a leash that like randomly kind of glitched out into a wall. But that's like not game breaking at all. But the point being is that for such a long and large game to have seen like almost next to no visual glitches or bugs, except one, like I said, insignificant thing like that, is pretty impressive, because that means they really got the game down pat. They really got it smooth, and so it functions very, very well. So again, like I said, visually gorgeous, stunning. It's just breathtaking. It really captivates you. Look, I'm a huge, massive fan of like fantasy, and especially fantasy worlds. And just for them to, kind of visually, kind of, I guess, portray that and very accurately, I think it was very, very well done. Now, moving on from that, that kind of brings us into, like I was saying, I was talking about the frame rate. Well, we got the gameplay, right? How's the gameplay? How's the combat? They took everything about the combat from, like I said, the first game, and they made it even smoother. They made it even better. It's very fluid, especially, like I said, in performance mode with that buttery 60 FPS. Very fluid. You have a wide variety of different skills that you can unlock throughout the game. And again, I'm not going to show you guys the whole skill tree, because, again, I'm trying to kind of, be as spoiler-free as possible. So just kind of general gameplay in the background for the most part, but it's your typical skill tree, right? You got a skill tree. They have tons and tons of different things. So of course you have the Leviathan axe, returning the blades of chaos, and there's some other stuff that you might encounter throughout your journey in terms of weaponry and armor, things like that. Again, I'm not going to spoil anything, but you may see a more variety, I guess, if you will, between yourself and companions and things like that. So it's actually pretty nice. They've added a bunch of different kind of ways to fight and go through combat. Like I said, I'm trying to give you some information without spoiling too much. But like I said, all the different skills you can unlock in the skill tree. There's a wide variety of different things, that increases various, abilities. For example, increases the duration of something, of an ability, or it creates, more powerful moves, or, unlocks different combos, different things like that, right? Typical skill tree. And then, like I said, you have a whole skill tree for the Leviathan axe, a whole skill tree for the Blades of Chaos, and, for, obviously, like I said, you have companions throughout your journey, and they have their own skill trees as well, and things like that. And it's very nice. It's very nicely well done. And then, of course, you can also upgrade your weapons, and you have your whole. It's sort of like a very subtle RPG element, right? Where you have like your stats, and you can increase your strength, your defense, your runic, your cooldown, your vitality, your luck. So you have a bunch of different stats, and different pieces of gear have different stats, right? Some will reduce some stats while increasing others, and vice versa. And it's really nice because, again, you can kind of cater your build towards how, maybe you like to play, depending if you want to be like more of a tanky build and, you have more defense, or if you want to have less defense and have more strength. And it's just nice to be able to have that kind of, those kind of options, if you will, and things like that. So there's a lot of different stuff. And eventually you unlock some other abilities that will have slots, or not abilities, but there's an additional piece of armor. I'm not going to spoil what it is, but when you unlock it, you have all these different slots that you gradually unlock, and you can have extra abilities. So there's abilities upon skills, upon armor, upon stats, there's so much to this. It's very, very in depth, but it doesn't feel overwhelming, at least not to me. And I'm the kind of person who usually feels pretty overwhelmed with stuff like that. But it's not too bad. Then, of course, you have your Spartan Rage, and, you have that returning, and that's, kind of categorized into 3 sections. I don't think it's very spoilery, but you have like your Wrath, your Fury, and your Valor. Valor is going to increase your health, right? It's going to give you some health back. So that's kind of what I ran with, just because I'm really bad. And then, there's, like I said, there's just so many different things you can customize. It's unreal. And then you go to the forging areas, and you can increase stuff, right? You can sell some stuff along the way. You can obviously, upgrade your different weaponry and armor to make them even better and stronger and have, increased stats. And there's a lot of different like treasure chests and a lot of different things to explore and to find along the way throughout your journey. And although for the most part, the game is pretty linear, there's some areas that feel a little bit more open, not necessarily open world, but more of that kind of vibe, without, like I said, feeling too open, right? It's, again, for me, some of the games now lately, they're too open. This doesn't do that. It's open where it's like it gives you that sense of exploration, but not so much where it's like overwhelming. And in terms of like while you're on the main story, there are going to be some paths where it's like, hey, if you go over here, we can do this like side quest. And the side quests, I haven't done a lot of them as of right now because I was waiting for the end game, but the ones I've done are very, very good. And if a lot of people are saying that these are like on par with the main quests. So the ones, like I said, I've done have been very good. There's some side bosses that you could do that are very challenging, kind of like the Valkyries from the previous game, but they're not Valkyries. They're a different kind of enemy. And those give you a little bit of a challenge as well. So there's a wide variety of things to do, a wide variety of things to explore. Like I said, it's linear enough where, it kind of pushes you in the right direction, but at the same time, there is certain parts where you're going to need to solve puzzles. You're going to need to think outside the box. You're going to need to think, okay, I have this ability now, and I have this and this and this that I've unlocked throughout my journey. How can I use this to solve this puzzle? How can I open this gate, for example? And sometimes you might get stuck for a little bit, and you're really gonna have to think about it. I got stuck in some areas that I had to really kind of put my brain to it and think, okay, how do I figure this out? How do I unlock this gate and keep this gate from closing on me, or different stuff like that? And so I like that there's enough puzzles that can make you think, but at the same time, they're not so challenging that you get overly frustrated with it either. It was a nice balance. And speaking of balance, there's like, I think 6 different difficulties you can set the game to. I would just in the middle, give me a balanced playthrough, but you could go on the easier side, you could go on the harder side, and having all those different kinds of, rather than just 3 modes like easy, normal, and hard, and having more subtle kind of changes, I think is nice to kind of cater to a wider variety of different kind of players and play styles. So that was really nice as well. And just all in all, like I said, I think the world is really well done. The stories, the main quest stuff, just how they kind of structured that, the puzzles, the side stuff, very well done. But as far as the story itself goes, now again, I can't say too much without getting into spoiler territory, but they really took you on the kind of ride where you didn't know how this was going to end. I mean, there's a lot of talk throughout the game of prophecy, right? There's these prophecies of what's going to happen. But then there's this idea of like, well, how can we, if we can, break these prophecies? And that's kind of the question you're left with throughout the whole game is, can we break the prophecy? Are we stuck to prophecy? Are we just creatures of prophecy, if you will? Is it something that we can, we can forge our own path? Or are these prophecies going to come true? And that's kind of the big question, right? And again, no spoilers, but you're going to find out the answer to that as you get to the end of the game, whether these prophecies do come true, or whether you end up forging your own path, and which way the story ends up taking you. And it's built in a way that leaves you kind of constantly guessing, constantly asking questions, and that's kind of why I didn't do a lot of side stuff on my journey, because I was so invested in the main story. I just had to find out, how does the next part happen? How's the next part happen? And there's so many different characters, right? There's obviously a lot of familiar faces from the previous game, but there's even more characters that you're going to meet along the way. And I just feel like the way that the stories were fleshed out, the way that these characters were fleshed out, the relationships, how they were built, how the character arcs were, how the character development was, all in all, I think it was very, very well done. It kept you intrigued. It kept you invested in these individual stories. Like I said, individually, but also together, right? Like, for example, with Kratos and Atreus, you're invested in them as a father and son relationship, right? In that kind of dynamic, and how that's, growing over time throughout this story, and how it's continued to grow from, the previous game. But then you're also invested in their individual stories, because obviously, Kratos, he has a lot on, from his past, and there's a lot of, baggage there, and there's a lot with what happened with his wife in the previous game, and there's a lot, with trying to be a good father, but at the same time, like I said, he's the god of war, right? So there's all this different stuff kind of going on, and he has his own thing going on. But then Atreus has his own thing, right? He's growing up, right? He's not just a little boy anymore, but he's not like necessarily a full-grown man either, and he's trying to figure out his place in the world. And so there's kind of this whole thing individually, but again, that kind of clashes and overlaps together, and that happens with the other characters as well, right? All of the other characters that are in the game that you're gonna meet along the way, or re-meet, or whatever, from previous games. You're gonna have a lot of that kind of dynamic, and I feel like the way they've kind of fleshed that out and crossed everything over, and there's so many layers. It's like an onion, right? You peel the onion, there's different layers overlapping each other. They did that very, very well, and I think it was just so well executed. It kept me very intrigued, very invested my entire playthrough, and I don't have anything bad to say about the game. Like, I mean, I guess I could sit here and try to really nitpick if I wanted to, but all in all, I really loved every minute that I spent with this game. I'm going to be going back, and I'm going to try to get 100% if possible as well. And that's a nice thing, no spoilers, but the way that whatever happens, at the very end of the game doesn't really matter story-wise. All that I'm going to say is that you are able to go back and do the side quest, right? I mean, however they do that, right? I'm not going to spoil how they do that. There's many ways, right? It could be something like Breath of the Wild, where you beat Ganon, but then, Ganon's undead, right? Where the final boss is. I mean, they could do that. I'm not going to tell you what they do. You have to find it out for yourself. I'm just going to say that don't worry about missing side stuff, because there's a final quest at the end of the game that's basically to go get 100% completion. So you're good on that front. So all in all, the game was a masterpiece, and I can't give it anything less than a perfect, solid 10 out of 10. This game is a perfect masterpiece. It has lived up to the hype. It has lived up to everything we've been waiting for and anticipating, and so much more. They've nailed it on the head. This is such a great game. If you have a PS5 or a PS4, because it is on both games, you'd be crazy not to play this game. I mean, for a PlayStation owner, it's a must play. You have to play this game. It's just one of the best games out there. We've had some other first party games come out this year for PlayStation as well, and although they're great in their own regard, God of War takes over them all and just really smashes them into oblivion, because it's just so well done. It's so good. So if you've loved all the other first party games, like I said, they were great and amazing in their own regard. I've reviewed those as well. Then you will love this game. It is so good. So I'll leave it at that. I could just rant about this, but I don't want to make this video too long. God of War Ragnarok, they've really delivered on it. Like I said, there's a lot more I could get into. There's a lot of collectibles and side stuff you pick up along the way. There's a lot to do. There's a lot to see, but I'm trying to keep this as spoiler free as possible. And like I said, I think they've nailed it in all regards. So that's my review. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Let me know if you've beaten God of War Ragnarok, or if you've been playing it. Try to keep it as spoiler free as possible for others down there. I'm going to pin a comment down below, and in that comment is where you can put spoilers. Okay, so under my pinned comment, use that thread if you want to talk about spoilers. So don't, if you're not looking for spoilers, don't open that thread. Just comment, otherwise. So God of War Ragnarok, guys, let me know what you think. I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and my full playthrough is up on the channel, or it will be. It's been going up at the time of recording this, and it will continue to go up. So if you want to kind of check out my own playthrough, my experience, and play alongside me, or just whatever, that is available there as well. So thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. And man, I cannot wait to see what is next for the story that is God of War. Where can they take this next? That's the question. I guess we'll find out in the coming years. Thanks for watching. Till then, game on. See you guys later.